deadline for him to show up? Like, is there a deadline for him to show up? And at this point, now that guys are getting ready to get on the field, he is still not in the Pittsburgh Steelers uniform. So I think that's a glaring need as well. But I did like some of the pieces they added. Getting to my New York Jets, I gave them a solid B-. When you look at it, they literally solidified their offensive line with Armand Membu. When you look at the total age of their projected starting five, I think the average age, fellas, is 23.5 years old. I don't think another team in the league can say that. When you talk about the youth that they have on this team to build and the draft capital they've given to that offensive line, let's not forget when they were really good in 2010 and 2011, it was built off the offensive line. And I believe that's what Darren Muji and also Aaron Glenn kind of wanted to attack going into this draft. Then getting royalty, right? And Mason Taylor, whose father not only played for the Miami Dolphins, but had a stint in New York as well in the green and white. He was tight end 3 for most people that I know. So to be able to get him at the top of the second round, especially after Colston Loveland and also Tyler Warren went early in the first round, I thought was a home run pick to give Justin Fields a weapon down the seam. Thing is, at LSU, they didn't use him that much down the seam. They used him a lot on flare routes, and they used him in the red zone. But I think because they had so much power at receiver, that's why they didn't use him down the seam. The Jets will use him in his skill set down the seam. Now, getting Thomas from Florida State, Azare Thomas, I think was great value in the third round. Now, it wasn't necessarily a need, but I think the thing that Darren Muji really said about this team was we kind of wanted to stick to our board. And I thought they could have maybe attacked the defensive tackle, especially since this was probably the best defensive tackle group we've ever seen. But I think that Thomas was so high on their board compared to where a D tackle might have fallen to them in the third round that they said the value outweighed maybe taking a defensive tackle. So I like the Malachi Moore pick in the fourth round. I know we're talking about this later, but I gave them a solid B-.
Yeah, I think the Steelers draft, I mean, when you only have one top 75 pick, it's just going to be tough. But I love Derek Harmon, so I'm not going to hate it. And that's like what ends up mattering at the end of the day. I think we really, in the draft conversation, post-draft, always overemphasize like the fourth and fifth rounder that you loved. And it's like sometimes those guys turn into like solid players, but it's really just if you can hit your first and second rounder every single year, you end up being a good franchise. And so I think they hit their first rounder. So from that perspective, I like it. And for the Jets, like Armand Membu, I'm right there with you with this offensive line. It's about to be. It could be, within the next couple of years, a top 5 offensive line in the NFL. I don't think that's out of the possibility whatsoever. My Packers had a weird draft. We'll get to it later. It just wasn't completely different from every draft of Packers history. Like they went outside of type. They haven't drafted a wide receiver since 2002. They haven't drafted a 330 plus offensive lineman since I can remember. That is just not their type. And then they draft Savion Williams, who's like a gadget player, and they've never coveted a gadget player in Packers history. So all of it didn't quite make sense, but we'll get to that and all the picks. We'll start with Tennessee Titans. We're going to go in order of the first round here. Yep. We're going to kick it from me to Leger to BMAC. We're going to go team by team by team. Best pick, head scratching pick. Their best pick, I mean, ultimately their best pick's really Cam Ward, right? It's going to be their best pick. But Kevin Winston Jr. to me was their best value pick. He is, when healthy, his tape's right up there with Nick Warriors, who went, 40 picks earlier in this draft. It's just he had the partially torn ACL, but it's still the recovery. He's already back. He's already working out. Mm-hmm. He's already got a full clean bill of health. He ran a 40 pre-draft. So I love this guy's tape. He's got freakish size and for the position, and is one of the best tackling safeties you'll ever see come out in the NFL draft. So for all those reasons, I love that pick. It was one of my favorite drafts. So from a head scratching pick, there were none. I'm not, maybe I would have gone elsewhere with that second rounder. There were maybe other guys I had higher on my board, but that's really splitting hairs because Olu Oladejo is like a unique defensive talent that if you want that, they don't last till like the third round. And so I kind of like what they did then, throw in the kitchen sink with Kamiri Dike, Gunnar Helm, Elike Yeoman are all in the fourth round there just to give some semblance of weapons to Cam Ward. And then obviously, signing his teammate as UDFA and Xavier Restrepo, I think he might see the football field for them. So all those, I was a very big fan of this Tennessee Titans draft.
Yeah, I like that Femi pick, Mike, just because they lost Harold Landry. They did sign Draymond Jones, who they feel can play outside and inside. But Femi Oladejo, honestly, besides Abdul Carter, I feel has the highest upside at edge in this draft because he has a similar skill set in regards to playing off-ball linebacker for most of his career. Even the first 2 games this year, he played off-ball linebacker, and then the third game they put him at edge. So high upside. I got the next team in Jacksonville. Obviously, the best pick, Travis Hunter. I liken it to this, guys. When you look where Jacksonville was at, and we got to take Tennessee off the board because everybody knew Cam Ward was going 1 overall. Teams that were 2, 3, and 4 in that order, right? When you talk about the Cleveland Browns, the New York Giants, and also the New England Patriots, if they were going to take Travis Hunter, he was for sure going to be a starter on the offensive side because all 3 of those teams are deep at corner. He went to the team that needed help in the secondary and needed help on the offensive side. So it was a home run pick because he's a guy that's going to start on the offensive side, but they're going to be able to use his skill set on the defensive side as well because they're not as deep as some of those other teams that would have been in the running to take him at the top end of the draft. I don't really have a head-scratching pick. The only one I would say was maybe head-scratching was Caleb Ransall in the 3rd round, only because you just paid Jordan Lewis a boatload of money to be your slot corner for the next 3 or 4 years. So Caleb Ransall, his skill set is in the slot. So it's just like when you're talking about 3rd round pick, like those guys, and you know this, B-Mac, 3rd round pick, you're hoping he's a starter in a year, right? Maybe even 2 at worst. So when you look at it, I thought, and I love the kid, I love the player, even going back to his days at Troy. I just thought as far as the value there, I think they should have went somewhere else. Wyatt Milam was a home run pick in the 3rd round, great value. He'll be able to slide in. Bashul Tuton is a home run threat at the running back position. So really love what they did in the draft. Again, not really a over-the-top head-scratching pick, but if I would say it would be Caleb Ransall just because of what they just did in free agency with Jordan Lewis.
Yep. Love that. I'm right there with you, Lejay, in terms of that's the thing. When you look at the draft, free agency just finished. So when teams make significant moves or disperse significant money to a position, they still add to that position in the draft. It's almost like, what are you doing? Like, did you forget that you just allocated this amount of money to pay this guy? And you draft a guy who clearly could improve in that same area, but it's almost like, you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone almost, you know what I mean? So we'll see how it play out. I have the New York Giants, best pick, Abdul Carter. This was easy for the Giants. The Giants, you were in a position to take whoever the team that was picking second didn't take. And you were going to get a generational type of player, a day 1 starter. And because the Jacksonville Jaguars traded up to go get Travis Hunter, it was easy. Go get Abdul Carter. Now you have a glorified defensive front that can win one-on-one matchups. That's the best pick for me with the Giants. The head-scratching pick is more so about the head-scratching decision. Of course, Jackson Dart seemed to be their guy, but trading all the way up to 25, I felt like that was a bit aggressive. And the reason why is because if you look at the coordinates of the 1st round, there were a few teams in the back end of the 1st round that clearly were okay in moving. The Philadelphia Eagles, for one, because that was a luxury position for them to be in. They didn't necessarily need to use their 1st round pick. And the same can be said for the Kansas City Chiefs. If you look at what both teams did, they actually did business with each other that didn't really make any sense because one team traded in front of the other and they were right behind each other. So that was a luxury position for either team. And I feel like if you're the New York Giants, maybe trade with one of those teams and you can maybe keep one of the resources that you gave up to go get Jackson Dart at 25. But that was their guy, and maybe they were a bit concerned with the Cleveland Browns, with them having extra picks because of the Jacksonville Jaguars trading up ahead of them to go get Jackson Dart. But that's the only head-scratching decision for me, just trading all the way up in the mid-20s to go get Jackson Dart when clearly you had 2 teams at the back end of the 1st round that was okay in moving.
I will say at least it didn't cost them a ton. It was pick like 100 in this year and then a 3rd round.
I think a 3rd rounder this year. Yeah.
So it's like it was not premium picks the way the Falcons ended up trading up. So if that's your guy, if you were that sold on him, it's going to look like it was pretty cheap in retrospect. I love their day 3 though. I mean, they hit Cam Scadaboo, Marcus Bowe, Thomas Fedone. Those are like the 3 positions, running back, guard, tight end, that you can, I don't want to say routinely find on day 3, but that it's possible to get high-end players that we see semi-often. And I think all 3 of those guys have potential that's way better than where they ended up getting picked. I got the Patriots next. My best pick, I mean, throw a dart at this draft and find their best pick. I love Braden Swinson in the 5th. I love Jared Wilson at the back end of the 3rd to be a possible starting center. I love Craig Wilson and Josh Farmer in the 4th. But my favorite has to be Kyle Williams, the wide receiver from Washington State. For my money, this guy separated on tape better than any other wide receiver in this draft class. You just watch him at the Senior Bowl, and it's just like gobs of separation against corners one-on-one. And yeah, he's small. Yeah, he's undersized. Yeah, he's older. Like there's knocks on him for sure. But I don't see doing what he did and then all of a sudden just not working out in the NFL. It's just like, not injury is really the only thing you worry about with a guy that size. And for a Patriots team that was so desperate for anyone to get open last year for Drake May, and they drafted a guy in Jalen Polk who's the opposite of Kyle Williams, like not a separator at all, just more of a savvy, contested catch, physical receiver. This is what you needed. This is a guy that can make a far outsized impact than what he would be as a 3rd rounder. So that's easily my favorite pick. Most head scratching pick. I can't find one. I truly can't find one. There were none of these picks made my head scratch. They were, and it's like even Travion at 38. I love it for this team. He is perfect for what I would want to do offensively when I have a guy like Drake May at quarterback. If you want to be like a run heavy offense, I think I would have looked elsewhere at that point, but you got your guy at quarterback. You then objectively don't want to be putting the ball in anyone else's hands but Drake May. If that's the case, Travion Henderson's the best guy to add to that group to do so. So no head scratching picks for me, for the New England Patriots.
I love their draft as well. I mean, New England, they did a great job the entire offseason. Free agency with all the money. They spent wisely. The draft, they hit on big-time glaring needs, adding playmakers, man. Yes. This is a team in the AFC East. I know no one is really expecting a lot. When you look at the turnover going off the Miami Dolphins, and, of course, the Jets having a new coaching regime, man, this is a team quietly could become the 2nd-best team in their division if they take care of their business based on the new personnel.
Yeah, without a doubt. And just looking at the history of Mike Vrabel, he turns things around pretty quickly. So to B-Mac's point, with the money that they allocated in free agency to the, I would say, home run draft that they just had, like this is a team, again, with Mike Vrabel and his pedigree could turn around and maybe compete this year to be a wild card team, which I know is crazy to even think about after what we saw on the field last year. But this team has been overturned at a high rate. I think it's hilarious you guys gave me this next team, Cleveland Browns. And the crazy thing is, I actually thought they had a pretty good draft. But we're going to start with the head-scratching one first. It's obviously Shedeur Sanders. And why I say, and it's not because of the player. It's because of what the Browns did. Taking Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round and then turning around and taking Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round. And why I say it's head-scratching because B-Mac, Mike, we followed this game for a while, and there's been times when teams have taken 2 quarterbacks. But it hasn't been a 3rd and a 5th rounder. There's been times going back to the Redskins days when RG3 went in the 1st, Kirk Cousins didn't go to the 4th, right? Just go back to last year's draft. Drake May, number 3 overall pick. Joe Milton didn't go to the 6th round. We were just talking about this, B-Mac, what teams look like when they take somebody in the 3rd round. A 3rd round pick is a guy that you hope starts in a year or 2. So why would you take Dylan Gabriel and then turn around and take Shedeur Sanders in the 5th, even if there was immense value when it came to your draft board? Because right now, going into training camp, the story's going to be Shedeur because he went in the 5th round, and a lot of people thought he was going at the back of the 1st, and the tape showed he should have went in the back of the 1st or early 2nd at the worst, right? I talked to a few personnel people, and they were saying, depending on the teams that needed quarterbacks, when you talk about taking somebody in the 4th round, now that's a developmental guy. I think the NFL showed you when it comes to developmental guys that they're willing to take them in the 6th, 7th round. Like they're not going to waste a pick in the 4th round if they don't consider you a starting caliber quarterback. And once Shedeur got past the 3rd round, B-Mac and Mike, he was considered literally a backup developmental player. So from a team perspective, yes, Shedeur has a lot of confidence. Yes, he has a entourage that's always around him, video recording stuff. I think teams looked at this and said, well, if he's going to be a developmental backup guy, we don't want him to be the story. Like, do we really want to take that on? And again, you can go back to what happened in the pre-draft process, but the tape alone showed this kid should have been back of the 1st, second-round pick. But we know this. It's not just about what you put on tape. Because when a team invests and drafts you, it's about what you do outside the field, right? Who you are outside the building, who you are in the building. So, like, I think, to me, that was just, again, with all the issues that Cleveland has had with quarterbacks, going back to the Deshaun Watson trade, and their owner even coming out and said, we made a mistake by doing this. You turned around and made another mistake on draft day by doing something else that was just out of this world.
Jay, it's Cleveland being Cleveland. That's all. That's it. That's what they do.
Gracious.
That's what they do.
It felt like, I mean, and you see the room afterwards, and now who knows how, like,
somebody getting traded to cut
right? Like who knows how, like, immediate that film was of them all, like, golf clapping, but there was not a level of excitement that you think you would get. Yes. Yeah,
compared to the other draft picks when they showed Cleveland's war room and you saw how elated they were with it felt like it was just like, and with this pick we're selecting such and such.
That's why I'm saying it felt like someone else made that pick. It felt like the people in that room did not make that pick. That's the reaction you would have if you didn't make that pick.
And to double down on that, Mike, when they go to the press conference, Andrew Berry and also Kevin Stefanski, and they talked about Shedeur, they said, he's going to have to come in here and earn it. My thing is, whether you're player one or undrafted, a coach told me, B-Mac, a long time ago, in the NFL, you compete to play and you compete to stay. So it don't matter where you go in the draft. You coming in competing day one. My thing is, if you have to emphasize that one while talking about a specific player, then you should have left them alone and you shouldn't have drafted them. Because you didn't say that for any other player you drafted, talking about he's going to have to come in, nothing's going to be given to him, he's going to have to earn it. Everybody has to earn it as a rookie. Why you had to emphasize that with him? My thing is, if you had to emphasize that with that player, then let somebody else take his skills and let them develop him. Because right now, he's not only fighting the 8-ball, or he's behind the 8-ball when it comes to being drafted later than what he thought he was. Now he doesn't even know if the coaching staff truly wants him on the team.
Yes.
And he has to deal with that every single day. So, again, Cleveland, what were you thinking? Other than that, I thought they had a hell of a draft when you look at the players that they put on this roster. I mean, Mason Graham, getting him at 5 after a trade and gaining draft capital, a future first-round pick. You pair him with Miles Sanders and Malik Collins. That is what defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz wants. He wants to attack the quarterback. And with those 3 guys up front, they can do that. Carson Schlesinger was my number 1 pure off-ball linebacker. And I want to emphasize saying pure off-ball linebacker because I think Jahad Campbell could do some stuff on the edge, and so can Jalen Walker. But when you talk about the instincts that he plays with, I think him and JOK are going to make a nice tandem in the middle of that defense. Quinshon Judkins was my RB3. So I think he went in the perfect spot. I wouldn't even be mad if somebody took him at the back of the first. You're talking about a battering ram, and that's what we know Cleveland Browns to be, right? A running team. They're trying to get back to that, and it'll be interesting, guys, to see if Tommy Rees ends up calling the plays or does Kevin Stefanski take over the play calling again, because I think Quinshon Judkins is a perfect back for Kevin Stefanski's offense. And I know Mike really loves this next pick, Harold Fannin Jr. Again, if Stefanski takes over the play calling, he majors in 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends. Him and David Njoku, that's going to be a mismatch from hell for linebackers and safeties if you have both of those guys out on the field. And I even love them doubling down on running back with Dylan Sampson in the 4th round.
That's the pick right there.
Yeah, they needed punch in that backfield. I love Jerome Ford, but I think Dylan Sampson and Quinshon Judkins are your future there. So obviously, besides the pick of Shedeur after getting Dylan Gabriel, they actually had a home run draft besides that. But again, that puts an asterisk on it because it made no sense.
Yeah, they got a bunch of guys who I think have sky-high potential for their respective positions. Like, I think Mason Graham, Carson Schlesinger, Harold Fannin, and then that running back duo could all end up like you could have a top 5 tight end room in the NFL, a top 5 running back room in the NFL,
correct,
and a top 5 sort of defensive tackle in the NFL when it's all said and done coming out of this draft. Obviously, the quarterback position, I don't think you're getting a top 5 out of this draft, even if one of them hits, but that's the Cleveland Browns for you.
I was surprised they didn't take a wide receiver at some point
anywhere
in the draft. True. Now, maybe that pick they used on Shedeur probably was supposed to be a wide receiver until the head man came in and said, no, draft him right now.
I'll say this. I think this leans towards Kevin Stefanski taking back over, and they're going to major, I think, in 12 personnel. And I like, Jerry Jeudy, and then also they have Terrence. What's my guy from Baylor, Mike? Terrence,
wide receiver,
the receiver.
Tillman.
They have Tillman.
Tennessee.
Tillman, that receiver, who I like a lot as well. Yeah. So I think those will be your two starting receivers. Those will be your two starting receivers, and I think they major in 12 personnel.
And whoever it is, they're going to be running the football a lot.
Correct.
Guess, at this point. All right, we take a quick break. After that, we're going to get to the Raiders, Jets, Panthers coming up next.
Critics are buzzing about the new season of Yellow Jackets.
This is not healthy.
Yellow Jackets' new season now streaming on the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan.
I'd be back. Who you got for the Raiders' best pick and most head scratching?
The most glorified running back in the draft, Ashton Genty, the best pick. He feels a major need for them, and he was arguably the best available player at that time as well. Type of player that can change the entire coordinates of an offense, especially a offense with a new regime, new quarterback, new play caller, new head coach who loves having balance. He will provide that. All right, so for me, the head-scratching pick for the Raiders is taking Tommy Mellott, right? Now, he played quarterback at Montana. He's going to be like their wide receiver. I was a bit surprised and confused with
Julian Edelman,
because they, in the first 4 rounds, they used 2 picks on 2 legit wide receivers. Now, when you look at Tommy, he's been a quarterback, a dual threat type of guy. I don't know what his route tree looks like. I don't know what the consistency of his right running looks like. I don't know what the consistency of him running routes and actually catching passes looks like. So this is a project. For the Raiders, you have no time to select projects. Even if the tape screams, we can turn him into something. The key word is might. Dick LeBeau told me a long time ago when I was playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, I thought will get me and you fired. You better know. And if you're the Raiders, you're in that situation, you got to know. I felt like they could have maybe used that pick on a defender, especially the cornerback situation. They lack depth at the cornerback room. So that's the only head-scratching thing for me, because you're taking a quarterback who was an athletic quarterback throughout his collegiate time, threw the ball well, ran the ball well, and you're basically trying to turn him into a wide receiver. Hopefully it works out, but I felt like addressing the cornerback room would have been more of a glaring need for the Raiders. Outside of that, I applaud what the Raiders have done. Pete Carroll, he's back back on the sideline. Can't wait to see what he has in store. I loved everything else about their draft.
Yeah, I think Mellott, they're trying to essentially make him Julian Edelman at the end of the day. I like you, B-Mac. I love their draft. I thought they had a home run draft. And honestly, when you take a guy in the 6th round, he's a developmental guy anyway. Most of those guys are going to be bottom of the roster guys or even practice squad guys. So I think that's why they took a filler on him, just like they drafted Cam Miller out of North Dakota State as a developmental quarterback. The guy that went in the 7th round, he's going to make the team, though. Cody Lindenberg, I think in the future is going to be their starting linebacker. He plays with so much instincts, and you could tell by watching his tape that he's in the film room at all times. I mean, Mike, you see him communicate with everybody on the defense for Minnesota. He knows exactly where the play is going to be before the quarterback even snaps it. So the funny thing is, I did a perfect draft for the Raiders, and I had them drafting him in the 7th round, and that's where he went. I think he's going to be a starter for them in the future. We talked about my New York Jets a little bit earlier. The one head-scratching pick is Arian Smith to me in the 4th round, just because of the receivers that were left on the board, and Jalen Royals and then Keandre Lambert-Smith, guys that have speed as well. Arian Smith does have track-like speed, but he also drops everything. He has major drop issues. I believe he dropped 10 passes last year in college football, and then he gets to the Senior Bowl and dropped like 2 or 3 more. And B-Mac, we know that's a confidence thing. That's not really a coachable thing. Like, catching the ball is your job as a receiver. So that one was a little head-scratching to me, and I get it from a standpoint of Aaron Glenn coming from Detroit and also Tanner Enstrang, the new offensive coordinator. They probably saw some J-Mo in him in regards to the type of speed that he has and how that can free up Garrett Wilson in the middle of the field. But I think at that point, I thought there were other receivers that could have filled that void that don't have as many drops as Arian Smith. I mean, the best pick, without a doubt, is Armand Mimbu, even though it was in the first round, to solidify an offensive line. Again, a guy that probably had the highest upside at offensive tackle, athletic tackle that has really good footwork, also the athletic ability to climb and get to the second level and cut off the defensive tackles on the backside. And he's a finisher. I think that was the thing that the Jets wanted to do when attacking this draft. They wanted guys that were physical, and Armand Mimbu fits that bill. Also love the Mason Taylor pick. And the Azariah Thomas pick, again, I think was value at the time of the third round. Wasn't a major need for the Jets, but a lot of people had this guy going to the top of the second. So if you can get him in the middle of a third, that's great value.
Yeah, I think he really just fell because of his 40 time, because on tape,
which is stupid.
Tape's a lot better than an early third rounder. I'm right there with you, though, on the speed receiver pick, Arian Smith. I would have rather gone Jalen Lane from Virginia Tech. I would have rather gone Keandre Lambert-Smith. If you really just wanted a speed guy at that point in time, then like Jalen Royals, Eliki Omenor, Torrey Horton are all also like better wide receivers, even if you just wanted to add a wide receiver to that roster who could theoretically play for you right now and be an impact guy. So I think that pick was a little bit of a reach. All right, Carolina Panthers. Best pick to me, it's not maybe just best pick, but best process. I love them going Ted Iroa McMillan at 8. No one thought they would go back to wide receiver. This is the third year in the top, I guess, like 40 picks that they would go wide receiver. Jonathan Mingo, after I'm blanking on the guy they drafted first round last year.
Xavier Legette.
Oh, Xavier Legette.
And then T-Mac, it's like, but the first two really weren't hits, right? When you didn't hit, you still have the glaring need, and it's like, you still need to give Bryce Young weapons. And to me, this is the perfect weapon to give Bryce Young, a guy with a massive catch radius who can make plays in contested situations, and you just didn't have that. You just didn't have that. So I love that pick. The head scratcher to me was Trevor Etienne. To me, Trevor Etienne versus Dylan Sampson, I don't think was close. Dylan Sampson is still on the board here. I don't think when watching those two guys, I cannot come to any other conclusion than Sampson is the much more NFL caliber back. Maybe it's because of return ability. Etienne has some history as a kick returner.
Well, maybe, Mike, do you think they had concerns with Dylan Sampson the injury?
What was his injury?
I think it was hamstring, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Maybe, but I don't know. I'm not saying Trevor Etienne's bad back. Like, truly, this is where you take him. I just didn't think Dylan Sampson would be there. And
I'm right there with you. If I had to pick either or, I'm taking Dylan Sampson.
Yeah. So,
you guys think that Jonathan Brooks is done? Most likely.
I don't know.
I don't want to say done, but it's almost like
they brought in Rico Dotto and they just paid Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah, and they took Jonathan last year in the second, right?
Second, right?
Correct.
And that's that is why when people say injury red flag, he's off our board. How does XYZ guy to fall to the second round? And like, what a steal. Well, sometimes injuries don't go back to full health. But I don't know if it's a clean ACL and he just got a bad reconstruction, right? And it was a weak one. There's been guys who have had multiple come back. And, Thomas Davis, right? I think he had like 3 on the same ACL. And he played till he was 36 in the league at linebacker. So it's not impossible, but I think that is insurance for should he not play it down again.
Yep. All right, I'm up. I have the New Orleans Saints. Man, the Saints had a very, very emotional day in terms of their fans with the entire weekend of the NFL draft. It was crashed. They were crashing out all through social media outlets. But let's start with that best pick. Calvin Banks Jr., man.
Yeah.
He's a bookend, bro. He's a football player. I really believe in Leger. You have experience playing on the line. I think if they wanted to slide him inside, they could, and he could be a day one starter. But of course, he's a tackle. That's where I see him fitting. But just the versatility because of his football intellect, I think they can do a lot with Calvin Banks. And that was a glaring need for them offensive line wise last year. So many injuries. It showed a lack of depth with all the injuries they were dealing with throughout this throughout 2024 campaign, and it really hurt the production for whoever the quarterback will be, right? You got to find a way to protect the quarterback. The most head-scratching pick for me is Tyler Shuck, for me. And the reason why this is a head-scratcher, guys, you took him early in the second round, the 40th pick. I felt like that was a bit aggressive for him. I felt like you could have waited and still got your guy. The concerns that I have with Tyler, of course, he's going to be 26 in the fall. I understand quarterbacks nowadays, they're playing to their early 40s, which is cool. But for him, has he peaked already? That's my concern. Getting ready to turn 26, have you peaked? Leger, you know, when you played in the league, when I played in the league, by the time we hit 26, we were just starting to hit our stride. For him, has he reached his maximum skill set? And then the injury concerns. And then also, too, when you go back and watch his collegiate tape, especially a year ago, guys, he wasn't even the second best quarterback in the ACC. In my opinion, I don't think he was the second best quarterback in the ACC. It was Cam Ward and
I don't even think that was close.
Yes, it ain't even close. So if you're saying best case scenario in the ACC, you drafted the third best quarterback, best case scenario in the ACC at 40 with injury concerns. He has a long laundry list of injuries, and he's about to be 26 in the fall. I felt like that was a bit aggressive, and I felt like they outdrafted him, in my opinion. And you know, when you get drafted in positions where you're not supposed to, regardless of your skill set, the expectations are high. Just ask the New York Giants with Daniel Jones when they drafted him, where they drafted him, in my opinion. So that's the only head-scratching thing for me with the Saints. They didn't have a lot of draft capital, of course, but I love Calvin Banks, but Tyler Shuck for me is a head-scratcher.
Yeah, it felt almost like burning a draft pick, just because you already have a couple guys you've drafted recently in that roster, and Jay Kane or Spencer Rattler. Like, just roll. And Rattler, I don't want to say showed enough as a rookie. Like, he had struggles as a rookie, but like, he is a developmental enough. He has enough talent that I would just, if Derek Carr truly can't play this season, I would just roll with him, take your lumps, because what does Tyler Shuck do for you? Like, his upside is maybe he's like an okay starter, but you're not you're just not a good roster right now. You needed the talent at other places on this roster to replenish. Correct. And you're going to be in next year's quarterback class almost anyways. So I just don't see what this does for you. To me, it felt like when the Texans drafted Davis Mills, right? And it's like, you guys, I know you guys are going to stink. You're going to be looking at a quarterback next year too. Why do this right now is what it felt like to me. Yeah. So right there with you. They had a great draft outside of that, though, so not going to knock it too hard. Chicago Bears. I have their best pick. I love their first two picks, but I think just adding Luther Burden when no one thought that's where they were going to go. I don't think even your most staunch Bears fan thought they were probably going to go elsewhere. I love the process of every single type of weapon you could want is now in that Bears offense. Like, people thought going running back here. No, like, Luther Burden could go play running back for you, and I think be one of the better running backs in this draft class with the way he moves with the ball in his hands. So many guys now in that receiving room with flexibility, can do a lot of different things. Just so much dynamism that everyone has to command your attention in some way, shape, or form. And for Ben Johnson now, just has all these different toys to play with and weapons at Caleb Williams' disposal. So that's easily my favorite. Head scratching. I'm going to go. I thought it was a solid draft. I thought Trapillo in the second and Shamar Turner were both a little bit of a reach for me. I saw them more as back end of the top 100 guys, mid to late thirds.
Really?
And to go Turner over Darius Alexander, in my opinion, was I just would have gone to Darius Alexander. For him to go 2 picks later or 3 picks later.
I was going to say, I think it was only like 2 picks later, though.
Yeah. So that's where I would have gone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Shamar Turner fan, so I get that because I'm a bigger Darius Alexander fan. Obviously, you love Luther Burden, so this is my question with that. Literally, his skill set is just like DJ Moore, so it'd be interesting to see like how they use those two to get those two skill sets together. And again, Ben Johnson's very inventive, but I would have maybe attacked a different type of receiver if I was them. Now, again, to your point, you can line him up in the backfield because he does have that skill set like Debo, where the first guy never seems to bring him down, even though he's not built as big as Debo. But I love the value in the second round. It's just be interesting because they just paid DJ Moore a boatload of money. Mm-hmm. Like, their skill sets on the same field is going to be interesting. I have the next one, and this is an interesting team to me. Because I finished my career here in San Fran. And I I don't like being negative when it comes to players, especially before they hit the field. But just knowing Robert Saleh going back to that team and knowing the type of players he normally looks at in the draft, it's almost like San Fran changed up their scheme or changed up their mentality with this draft. I'm going to go with my favorite pick and best value. And this might be a head scratcher to you guys, but Jordan Watkins in the 4th round. Not a lot of people were talking about this receiver. And when you talk about a receiver that can run, and I mean run, Jordan Watkins can do that. You see it right there with the 40 time. I think he ran in the 4.3s. Yeah, 4.37. Mike, when I was going through the process, I kept asking everybody, I was like, why is nobody talking about number 11 from Ole Miss? I don't think he went to any All-Star games, or he might have went to East West if I'm not mistaken. But nobody was talking about this kid. And I get it because Ole Miss had a defensive line that everybody was going to get drafted on. You had Jackson Dart as well. So I get it from that standpoint. But this kid can really fly. And he's tough as nails. There were times, Mike and B-Mac, they put him in the yo position. And for people that don't know what that is, they had him on the hip of the tackle, blocking the defensive end at receiver. That lets you know how tough this kid is. I just think, Brandon Ayuk hopefully coming back healthy, he'll open up the middle of the field for him and Ricky Pearsall because of the speed that he has. And I think he'll help you on special teams. So for the value, I liked it. Head scratcher, again, I don't want to be negative, but I thought their first 2 picks don't normally fit the criteria of what their scheme is. I love Mykel Williams, high upside guy, but Chris Kasarik, I played under him. Robert Saleh played under him. That's an attacking style defense. And Mykel Williams doesn't really have the twitchiness that you would think.
Yes.
The custom to what that defense holds. And again, this is not me being negative because I love Mykel Williams. I think that he's a guy that has the versatility to play 3-4 in or outside as a book in a 4-3 system. But I know you look at me kind of crazy there, Mike, but I think he has the body type that will grow in and he can gain 20 pounds and he could be like a Calais Campbell. I literally look at his body and see that. Because a lot of people, even my comp for him was Trayvon Walker. And that was the same thing with him coming out. Nobody knew if he was truly a edge guy or was he a 3-4 in, right? And I feel like Mykel Williams fits in that same mold. And then Alfred Collins is clearly a first and second down player. Now, I know they've had issues stopping the run, but to me, when you start changing the profile of your players, it doesn't bode well in the future for your scheme, right? And even CJ West, I love CJ West, but he's a first and second down player. So when I look at this draft, I'm like, they didn't pick guys that they normally pick as far as trait profiles to fit the defensive scheme. And then Upton Stout in the 3rd round, who is clearly just a slot player, they have one of the best slots in Diamador Lenoir, which means they're going to force him outside and you're not going to get the best of him because when he's playing his best, you have 2 outside corners and he's in the slot. But Upton Stout from day one is only going to be able to play in the slot. He's not going to be able to play outside. So I would say a out of this world draft in regards to San Fran because they pick players that don't fit the profile that they usually pick. And that was a bit concerning for me.
Yeah. For me, let's go to the NFC East, to the Dallas Cowboys, right? Jerry Jones's Dallas Cowboys, the best pick for me. I love Tyler Booker. I think he is a day 1 starter. I think he has an opportunity to be a Pro Bowl as a rookie. And one thing I won't question with Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys, anytime they draft an interior O-lineman, they usually hit on those said guys. They do a great job in identifying talent in those areas of their offensive line. But for me, the best pick is Suvon Revo Jr. And the reason why is because he was a 1st-round talent. He tore his ACL in September. So because of that injury, it kind of knocked him to the 3rd round. But if he's able to be 100% healthy, and that's what we're hearing, they have no concerns with his injuries, you will get a day 1 starter in your secondary. The guy that has a higher upside to a Tariq Woodland, who he reminds me of because of his measurables. He might not be as fast as Tariq Woodland, but he has more instincts. And I love his willingness to tackle and just be disruptive. So he was the best pick for me, Suvon Revo Jr. from East Carolina. The most head-scratching decision. It wasn't about a pick, guys. It was about a decision or the lack thereof. They didn't address the wide receiver room at all. Now, We're hearing that they entertained or they called the Pittsburgh Steelers to see exactly what was going on with George Pickens. They were being a bit cheap. So Pittsburgh did not entertain that phone call. So clearly they were trying to improve the wide receiver room during the weekend of the draft. So if you were actually trying to see what you could do to potentially trade for a player, you knew that was a need. Ask me how many wide receivers did they draft? 0. So we know who CD Lamb is. We know who CD Lamb is. But outside of
Jonathan
CD
Mingo,
Lamb,
baby.
They got Jalen Turbert and they got Robert Turpin, right? Those are the other 2 wide receivers. So if you're in
Mingo.
Huh?
Jonathan Mingo, baby. They traded for him.
I said, again. I heard you the first time. I heard you the first time. But all I'm saying is this. If you actually work the phones, guys, to see what you could do, what it would cost to go get a wide receiver who is proven, clearly you knew that was a need for your team. And you did nothing to improve that concern. That's the biggest head-scratching decision for me with the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, I like the draft picks they got, but I'm 100% with you. They did not really add weapons to an offense that desperately
like playmakers.
I like the Miami Dolphins next. Their best pick is also their most head-scratching decision. Jonas Savvy-Naya, I love. I think he's perfect fit for that offense. Plug-and-play left guard. That's where you're playing him. I think he's tailor-made to be a Mike McDaniel guard. Just like he's agile, he can move, but he's also bigger dude that's going to be a plus pass protector at some point in time. Great pick. But you gave up a 3rd rounder to do it. And you didn't exactly have draft capital. And you don't exactly have a great roster. We were talking like after the draft when I was up in Stanford, we're like, no one's really bottoming out. There's no one who's really cut bait on this year and looks like they're going to be terrible. So there's no like clear cut favorite to draft number 1 overall. But it would not surprise me if the Miami Dolphins are the team that just takes a beating this year because of what that defense currently looks like. The fact that Tua Tagovailoa is one small breath away from missing the football field. Like he gets injured every year, even if it's not concussion issues. The guy has a lengthy track record of injuries right now. So an injury to Tua, I think things could go really south for this team, unfortunately. And I just don't think this draft did anything to change anything. Like it's not even like a long-term forward-thinking draft outside of the, getting back a future pick. Because I don't know if and then Kenneth Grant at 13. You can argue the value all you want or whatever. I had him a lot lower on my board, but this, you have to admit, was an elite draft for nose tackles. Kenneth Grant's a good nose tackle, sure, but it was a great draft that you could get nose tackles anywhere. And they literally got one in the 5th in Jordan Phillips. Their next pick after Jonas Savvy-Naya was one of them.
They drafted 3 defensive tackles, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah.
And Biggers in the 7th.
They needed it, right? They did need it.
They did.
But
just roster alone, BMAC, they needed it.
yeah.
I know, but to Mike's point, your offensive line has really been revamped, unfortunately. And if you don't protect your quarterback, and he's a bit fragile when it comes to injuries.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why they were so aggressive with Savania. To Mike's point, I think he's going to be a day 1 starter, and he was a guy that played right tackle, but he'll make the transition to guard. I think they're trying to find that Robert Hunt because they underestimated what his value was.
They shouldn't allow him to walk.
And they left him. But honestly, I think Patrick Paul is going to be a good player. They drafted him last year in the 2nd round. And then Austin Jackson has actually been steady Eddie at right tackle. Now, his issue has been health. He can't stay healthy. And they hit a home run with Aaron Brewer at center. So the offensive line isn't as crazy as people actually make it out to be. Depth is the issue when it comes to the offensive line.
And pretty much everywhere. They are not deep right now. And that's why I question, trading up, trading away picks, and then also just it felt like they had needs and they're like, this is a draft where I have to address these needs instead of just going at the board and saying, there's better players available. Let's take the better players.
Yeah, I'm next on the board with Indianapolis Colts. I don't even think this is up for debate. Tyler Warren, their best pick. Kind of reminds me of a guy they had years ago in Dallas, Clark, right? And they get his skill set. He can line up anywhere on the field, in the backfield, at quarterback. Shoot, they lined him up at center, B-Mac versus USC, and he caught a pass down the seam for a touchdown. So the boy can throw the ball, he can run the ball, he can do it all. I just think whoever ends up starting, whether it's Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, they'll have a weapon in Tyler Warren that they can really lean on. And he's going to help in the run game with Jonathan Taylor as well. Head scratching to me was Justin Wally in the 3rd round. And I say that, and I made this point earlier with Jacksonville. You took him in the 3rd round. I'm fine with that, but they literally have probably the best slot corner in all of football in Kenny Moore. Mm-hmm. And they needed more of a bigger body corner to go outside. Now, Wally can play outside, but I think his best position is the slot. So to me, are you going to?
He's playing outside. They've already made it known that that's what he's going to play. And he played predominantly
outside. That's what I'm saying. His best position's inside. I don't think his best position is outside. So that's why I said it's a kind of a head scratcher to me, because to me, he was a slot from day one, right? Watching his film at Minnesota. Again, he's a hell of a competitor, and I know he'll compete on the outside, but to me, his best position is inside in the slot. So I thought, again, we won't know until he's out there, but I think he's best suited at the next level in the slot, and we'll see how he plays on the outside.
Okay, I am up next. I have the Atlanta Falcons. Jalen Walker clearly is the best pick, versatile Micah Parsons type. But for me, the best value pick out of their draft is Xavier Watts, getting him in the 3rd rounder, in the 3rd round. And the reason why I think that's the best value, when you turn on his tape, me personally, I feel like he was a 2nd round type talent. Now, the thing about Xavier, he's a former wide receiver. He made the transition in college to the secondary position, to the safety spot, and he really excelled. And I was overly surprised to see how physical he is, not knowing that he never played in the secondary consistently until he got to Notre Dame. 13 career interceptions. He doesn't turn down any tackles. He's a physical guy. He gets guys to the ground, and you can tell he really knows the game, hit the instincts. So being able to put him into that secondary and safety clearly was a need for the Atlanta Falcons, and getting him in the 3rd round, guys, I really love that value because he's a pure football player. Now, that most head-scratching decision, not necessarily a pick, but decision for me, Atlanta trading back up into the 1st round. And the haul, they gave Les Snead in the rank. I understand. We've talked every year, it seems like, with Atlanta, the inability to put pressure on opposing quarterbacks and sack quarterbacks. It's been an issue. You addressed that concern with Jalen Walker. You felt like you needed to double up. Okay, cool. That's great. But this was a very, very deep edge rushing class, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I mean, heck, I understand Mike Green had some off the field concerns, but he fell to the 2nd round to the Baltimore Ravens. So you gave up premium picks. You gave up a 2025 2nd round pick, which was number 46. You gave up a 2025 7th round pick. Of course, that's a developmental type of pick. But then you went back and gave up a 2026 1st rounder. Who would say no to that? And you're not drafting a quarterback. You didn't trade up to go get a franchise quarterback because you already had that guy in place. You traded up to go get a guy who many people felt was already starting to slip because of some off the field concerns as well. At 26. So that's the most head scratching thing for me, is the decision, because that was a need, guys. But like I said, look how deep this edge rushing class was. And it's almost like if you stay put, you still can go get a guy who could have been James Pierce or someone just like James Pierce in terms of production, and you wouldn't have missed the beat. And you wouldn't have gave up next year's 1st round. And we don't know what that pick might look like because we don't know how well you might be this season.
It's, you know what it is. I mean, it's Terry Fontenot saying, I need to make the playoffs or I'm out, probably.
Or I'm out of here.
He has made the playoffs. 4 years as GM, they haven't made the playoffs once. So I do think that's what it is. It's the GM on the hot seat. So, all right, Arizona Cardinals, and then we'll get to break here. This one of my favorite drafts, best pick. It's either their 1st rounders. I don't think, like, when you get Walter Nolan, who I had 12th on my board, you get Will Johnson, who I had 17th on my board. It's just like, yeah, you knocked it out the park. Those are, and Nolan's just perfect for Jonathan Gannon's defense. Exactly what they needed. Like, those 2 guys, home runs. Jordan Birch, like, maybe if you want to say a head scratching one, I think the value there is great. So I'm not going to say it's head scratching, but like, they go 4 deep at edge right now. You have Baron Browning, Zaven Collins, Josh Sweat, BJ Ojolari. Will he see the football field compared to like a guard you could have drafted at that point in time? That you have a fairly weak offensive line at this point.
You know what's interesting, Mike? I think they're going to use him in a Darius Robinson role, kind of like Calais Campbell role. So I think he'll be more like a head up 4-eye.
Okay. Then that's
because he is a bigger dude.
Yeah. Yes, he is. Yeah. 279, I believe he came in the combine. But the Cardinals, again, like that is me because I had him a lot higher on my board. So I'm like, yeah, you got a player who's better than that. Sometimes you just chalk that up as a W. So I will do just the same. All right, we're going to take a quick break. After that, going to get to the second half of round one.
They want to take this place from us. My family is in danger. My wife is lost to me, and I don't have time.
1923, new season now streaming exclusively on Paramount Plus.
Leger, you're up with the Bengals. I'm excited to see what your take is here because, well,
yeah. So this
I didn't have a best pick.
Draft. Yeah, so to me, their best pick was Dylan Fairchild, just because I think he'll come in from day one and compete with Volson to potentially start this year. Volson started, they benched him, then they started him again. So to me, that's their best pick. Mike, you stated it. There was a couple head scratchers. Now, again, I'm not berating players, and we won't know what they truly are until 2 years down the road. But let's just look at the history of what the Cincinnati Bengals have done. It took Miles Murphy a few years ago because of traits and what he looked like, and he has not developed at all. They took the biggest boom or bust prospect in this draft at pick 17 in Shamar Stewart. 4.5 sacks his whole collegiate career. Traits out of this world, right? I think he ran in the 4.5s at almost 270. And when you turn his tape on, guys, he's a guy that constantly is making plays or disrupting plays, but he just doesn't finish plays. Like there's constant times you turn on the tape, B-Mac, and he's in the backfield to sack the quarterback, and he just doesn't do it. Now, whether it's the quarterback like steps up and gets out of his way or he slips off the quarterback. And I actually asked him about that at the combine. I was like, I know as an edge rusher that gets frustrating. At what point does it become more of a mental block for you when you're going to finish and you just don't finish? He's like, sometimes I'm just out of control. And when I get there, I win so easily that I'm out of control and I don't make the play. And Mike had this concern about him. He was like, I don't know if you can coach that. And he might be right because literally being able to play under control, that's a mental thing. Like, I don't know if that's coachable. Like, you got to be able to slow the process down. Actually, shout out to my guy, BJ Hill, because I reached out to him and I was like, this kid has traits, bro. You just got to work with him and get him out of his head, and then you'll reap the benefits. Demetrius Knight, I thought was maybe a little rich in the second round. This is a physical downhill linebacker. Question mark on him is pass coverage. Is he a guy that can cover in space and redirect? I actually like Barrett Carter. I honestly think he might beat out Demetrius Knight in regards to being like that third linebacker. I had a higher grade on him. I had him as a third round linebacker. So I would say between him and Dylan Fairchild, those were my two best picks. The first two picks were, I don't want to say head scratchers, but there's some concern there.
Okay, I am up next. I have the Seattle Seahawks. Their best pick, Nick Emmanwori, in the second round. Great value. I love this matchup, this relationship with Nick Emmanwori and his head coach and Mike McDonald. When Mike McDonald saw that Nick Emmanwori was available, he instantly said, Kyle Hamilton Part 2. And we saw what type of great football relationship he created with Kyle Hamilton when he was calling defensive plays for the Baltimore Ravens. Actually helped tutor and develop Kyle Hamilton, one of the best safeties in the game. So clearly he has a great game plan in store for Nick Emmanwori and the way they utilize their defense. And of course, it makes sense as well because another physical big safety player used to play for Seattle and Cam Chancellor. So this is a great situation for them. And it definitely will work out well for either side. In terms of head scratching decision or pick, I have none. I love Seattle's draft. Let's look at the first 6 picks, right? You got Greg Zabel in the first round, Nick Emmanwori in the second. You had an extra second round pick. You took Elijah Oworo, one of the more athletic tight ends in the draft. Then you took Jalen Milroe in the third. You took Riley Mills quietly. That could be a big time defining type pick as well in the fourth. And you took Torrey Horton in the fifth. Like those first 6 picks, I believe all 5 of those guys, except Jalen Milroe, probably will contribute to some degree during their rookie campaign, in my opinion. And Jalen Milroe, who knows? They might have a package or 2 for him, but with Sam Darnold being healthy and signing that deal, he's more of a developmental piece in year 1. But every other name that I mentioned, guys, they're going to contribute in year 1. And I think they're going to have a lot of success. So shouts out to Seattle. I have no issue with their draft.
I like Damian Martinez in the 7th too. I thought that.
I'm about saying Ricky White is a special teamer in the 7th.
Yeah, those were some steals. They had a great draft. Speaking of great draft, the Bucs were, I think I tweeted this out yesterday, the closest any team came to every single player being picked being actually higher on my board than where they got drafted. Now, Emeka Egbuka was just a couple spots lower, but this was an awesome draft, man. My best pick, my favorite pick was David Walker. I've talked about him a bunch.
Ooh.
Central Arkansas edge. I think him rushing in that defense right next to Yaya Diaby is like a powerful combo. Those guys fit and pair nicely together on third downs. And just, I love that they don't need him to play anything other than just like third downs. They already got everything else in that defense. He's just kind of a luxury pass rusher now. And that's where I think he can outperform where he's drafted as a luxury pass rusher. So love that one. Love their day 2 corners. Those guys I think can be stars. The only head scratcher, and it's not necessarily a head scratcher because I would have gone Jahdae Barron instead of Emeka Egbuka. I think Jahdae is perfect for Todd Bowles' defense. That would have been, you wouldn't necessarily have had to go to the day 2 corners, but like you did, you got him. Egbuka, you got a 3-up, you got a 4-up of wide receivers that I thought they loved. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, Trey Palmer. Now Evans might be gone after this year. Godwin, no telling how he comes back from that ankle injury. That was pretty gruesome. And McMillan's like a fine number 3. I'm not sure he was ever going to be like the number 1 in that offense for how much, liked him, not liked him that much. So Egbuka will still play a role, but that's just like the head scratchers. Just he may not. We may be 2 years into this, and it's just like, where is he? Is the issue I have with that pick.
Jahdae Barron would have been ideal for them at 19.
Yeah, Jahdae would have been.
Oh my God! And he literally went the next pick. That's what makes it even a bigger head scratcher. I'm with you, Mike. Like when you look at Emeka Egbuka, his skill set is similar to Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan. So it's like, if you're going to go receiver first round, it needed to be Tet or just wait to the second round to get Jaden Higgins or somebody else that fell to you in the second round. But other than that, he's a hell of a football player, so don't get it twisted. But every other pick was a home run pick. I mean, Tess Johnson, even in the 7th round, talking about immense value. But one of my favorite picks, and I actually called Todd Bowles about this, was Elijah Roberts. Let's not forget they took Logan Hall a couple years ago, and he has that same skill set. Logan Hall will be a free agent after this year, so it made sense for them to get a similar body type in Elijah Roberts. And like you, Mike, I had him as a 3rd, 4th round pick, so to get him in the 5th was amazing value. I got the Denver Broncos next, and there's nothing wrong with their draft at all. I mean, their first 2 picks might have been the best combination in this draft. And to me, when you talk about specifically what they're going to do on their team, from day 1, Jahdae Barron is going to start in the slot and lock that down. They have 2 really good corners. As a matter of fact, they have the Defensive Player of the Year in PS2 on one side. And before the injury, Riley Moss was playing Pro Bowl type football. I think people tend to forget that because he got abused by T. Higgins in the playoffs, which T. Higgins is one of the better receivers in football. But Riley Moss, you would assume, would get back to where he was before the injury. And now you slide Jahdae Barron at slot. And then you also have Jaquan McMillan. So now you got depth in the cornerback room. And then R.J. Harvey is the perfect back for Sean Payton's offense. Like that guard pull with Quinn. Just imagine Quinn Miners pulling on power, and then R.J. with the patience that he runs with. And then when he gets to the second level, it's lights out. That's home run. He's going to the house. He's actually my dark horse right now for Offensive Rookie of the Year because of the team that he went to. I think he's a dark horse for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Pat Bryant, if you want to say maybe a head scratcher, I had him more as a 4th round receiver, but they took him in the 3rd. He's a big body receiver, and they kind of have that already on the outside with Sutton. So maybe that pick. But I think Savion Jones made a lot of sense. Let's not forget John Franklin Myers is in a contract year, so he may leave in free agency. They have the same exact skill set, and he went to the perfect team. Q Robinson is a guy that's going to provide depth on the outside. So I honestly thought they almost had a perfect draft.
Okay. Next up, another team that I really like their draft. I stated earlier in the show is the Pittsburgh Steelers. The best pick for me is Caleb Johnson. He's the best pick for me. The value getting him in the third round. And I know I did a mock draft for the Steelers, and most of the fans, I had Pittsburgh actually selecting Caleb Johnson in the third round. Most people said he wouldn't be there in the third round. They felt like he would be a second round type talent. And if that was to happen, he clearly his tape says that, but he was available. They picked him instantly. A different style of back to what they already have in place with Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell. Derek Harmon, like I said, it was a need for them. They had other needs, but that was the bigger need for them in terms of shoring up and improving in the interior. And not to mention, you have an heir apparent in waiting whenever Cam Hayward decides to call it quits and get ready for his Hall of Fame campaign. Getting Jack Sawyer, he's going to be a stand-up outside linebacker. One thing I don't question with Pittsburgh, when they identify outside linebacker talent, stand-up rushers. You look at what they did a few years ago with Nick Herbig. He's been a wonderful player addition to them. You look at Alex Highsmith Jr. still playing at a high level, TJ Watt. Jack has so many great minds to learn from to improve his skill set. I love that pick as well. You still got your quarterback. You took Will Howard in the 6th. When you look at his skill set, I mean, there's some concerns, but he is a player. Clearly, they really valued him. You look at Ohio State's pro day, they sent the masses to do their due diligence to study him. He was available. They select him. And all in all, I guess the only head-scratching thing would be the first round decision. But now as we talk back and forth about the draft, clearly many teams had the same sentiment in terms of the type of talent that Shedeur Sanders was, because other teams passed on him in the first 4 rounds. Pittsburgh felt the same way. They took a defensive tackle. Let's see how it plays out. But one thing I talked about, outside rusher, linebacker, identifying talent. They know how to identify talent in terms of interior defensive linemen as well. So I'm okay with that pick.
Yeah, I would ask you this question about Jack Sawyer, because he is, again, this is not me berating him, but I just didn't see him going to a 3-4 team.
I already knew it.
He's kind of stiff. He's stiff. Yes. Like, and again, this is not disrespectful. He plays hard as hell, and I love everything about him when you turn on the tape.
Yes.
But as far as scheme fit, and I'm always a big proponent of scheme fit, because I hate when people call dudes bust, but then teams don't put dudes in the perfect positions to have success. And not even a perfect position. You only got to put me in a perfect position, but just don't let me work against myself because of the scheme. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So
that was my concern. I wonder, do they put weight on him and kick him inside as a 3-4 guy?
No. He's playing stand-up outside rusher. That was my concern as well, because Jack Sawyer was still available because of the lack of athleticism that he did not have. He's a football player. Now, my response would be, do you remember a player by the name of Lamar Woodley? We drafted Lamar Woodley. He was pretty stiff too. You're right. Yes, we drafted Lamar Woodley years ago when I was there in the 2nd round. He was a hand in the dirt edge rusher for Michigan his entire career. Yep. Never stood up, and he was a bit heavier than Jack, and he probably was not as athletic as Jack. But they coached him up, and he had a phenomenal career for us. Had a great NFL career in totality. So that's the thing. I never really questioned what Pittsburgh sees when they identify outside rushers for their system and interior defensive linemen, because they usually hit on those said guys. And Lamar Woodley is basically who Jack Sawyer is. Lack athleticism, a bit stiff in the hips, but he came to Pittsburgh, became an outside rusher, and had an outstanding career along with winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's actually a really good comp. I'm glad you brought that one up. I'm next on the dock, Los Angeles Chargers. I actually like a lot of what they did in this draft. By the draft, though, B-Mac and Mike, it kind of looks like maybe Quentin Johnston's days were numbered the way they drafted. They took Trey Harris, who I really love. This was a guy that had 1,000 yards and literally missed half the season. Like, that's how productive he was. A lot of people thought, Mike, he might have came out last year's draft, but decided to come back. Big body receiver that can win and man his own out. He doesn't have the crazy foot speed, but he just knows how to get open. He knows how to beat man coverage. He knows how to get open in zone coverage as well. I love the Omarion Hampton pick. Now, we know a former Steeler is there in Najee Harris, but he only signed a 1-year deal. And if you know anything about Jim Harbaugh, he's going to run that pill, and he wants multiple backs. And now he's got probably the most physical backfield in the NFL right now when you talk about Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton, because both of those guys can really go. A pick I really love in the third round, Jamari Caldwell. I know you were talking about Derek Harmon earlier, and we talked about Birch as well. I think he's going to be better than both of them when it's all said and done. I mean, the wiggle that this guy plays with, he's like a fire hydrant. He's hard to move off the ball. And people forget at Houston, the year before he transferred to Oregon, he had 6.5 sacks. So he can rush the passer. He just wasn't asked to do it at Oregon because they already had dudes there. Kyle Kennard was very productive at South Carolina. I mean, I thought they had a home run draft. And then we talked about this guy earlier, Mike, Keandre Lambert-Smith. You're looking for speed and height. That guy has it in bulk, like literally in bulk. And that's why I say I wonder if Quentin Johnston's days are numbered, just because they literally drafted 2 bigger receivers, and they also signed Mike Williams back as well. So I thought, not only did they fill voids on this team, but they got great value when they pick dudes. And then even RJ Mickens in the 6th round. Like, I thought that was great value. I had him as a 5th round safety. So, like, I thought the Chargers did a really good job.
I think they did a great job at receiver, considering they didn't invest much. Back end of the second, 5th rounder, that's all it took. And I think they got a receiving core now that you don't need to necessarily add to if you don't want to. I think that's more than good enough to win with. All right, Green Bay Packers. I will get to the head scratchers because my best pick is actually outside the top 100. My best pick is Colin Oliver for this team.
Really?
I think he's something that they do not have. Pure speed off the edge, or just like your flexible third down guy that can rush from anywhere. I think he is maybe even a transition to off-ball guy. I think that's actually for that scheme. I think that's what they're going to do. Try him in that. But I love the thought of him and Edgerrin Cooper as blitzers on third down in your off-ball linebacker core. That's like Colin Oliver is a high-level pass rusher. He just does not have a pass rusher's body. He has a 6'4" wingspan. He just does not have, he's 240 pounds. He is not that, but he knows how to get it done. I mean, he had double-digit sacks as a true freshman. So I love that pick because of what it could end up being. I love the Baron Sorrell pick too, but the head scratcher was just, and I think Matthew Golden, like for what they want offensively, I think he's a really high floor guy, even if I don't think he's like a true dominant number 1 they usually get in the first round. I think he's going to be very good for them. Head scratch was just day 2, just completely antithetical to everything we know about how the Packers draft. They I don't want to say undersized, but like 300 to 320 pound linemen who can move. Belton is decidedly not that. He was 345 at the Senior Bowl, 336 at the Combine. And then Savion Williams, they like a little more polished full tree route runner. Savion Williams is just like a pure athlete, gadget player, get the ball in his hands.
Guy. So, and where do they play him? Like, where are they playing him, Mike? Like, is he going to be the running back? Is he going to be a wide receiver? Like,
I think he's going to play some running back for them.
I think so,
it's
too.
Weird.
But it tells me Christian Watson days might be numbered in Green Bay.
Oh, no, they're saying that he might not even play next year because that was a gruesome injury.
Yeah. Wow. I think they know that he is likely not going to play anymore. And
Dobbs has the concussion issue.
Had so many that you just can't rely on him at this point, unfortunately.
Wow.
I will say before B-Mac goes, you know me, Mike, I was high on Baron Sorrell. I thought it was really cool. I don't know the draft story, him being in the green room. I honestly think, how do you say his name again? Inabari? Inabari. Yeah. I think he's free after next year, so that's why they drafted him. And then also Lucas Van Ness just has not lived up to that first round billing as well.
He got to turn the corner this year.
I think Baron Sorrell might end up taking reps from him too. I think he has that type of skill set.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to another NFC North team, a team Mike really loves as well. It's the Minnesota Vikings, of course. Now, the thing about the Minnesota Vikings, I think, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, they had the least amount of picks out of all teams in this draft.
So.
They only had 5 picks. They made the most out of those said 5 picks. The best player, Donovan Jackson, for me, wow. I mean, clearly one of the top interior guys. But remember, a top player who had to move outside, and they didn't miss a beat when in terms of what they asked him to do at Ohio State because of injuries. I think he's going to be a day 1 starter for Minnesota at one of those guard spots. I think it's the right side that's open right now for Minnesota, but he's going to get him a starting job instantly. Another pick that I really, really love for Minnesota is Ty Felton. He got it in the 3rd round, didn't have a 2nd round pick. He reminds me a lot of a former Minnesota Viking and my former teammate in Mike Wallace. Extremely fast, can create separation. He can get behind coverage. And also, too, guys, we got to remember, he put up great numbers for Maryland, and the quarterback play was very, very up and down. It was an emotional roller coaster, but he always stood on business and he delivered. So you look at what they already have in place at the wide receiver core in Minnesota. When you look at Justin Jefferson, when you look at Jordan Addison, I mean, Felton with his speed could really be a under the radar type of impactful player for Minnesota. And everything else, you look at Tyron Ingram Dawkins, edge from Georgia. You look at I love Kobe King as well. Clearly more of a special teams type of player. But if you turn on his Penn State tape, it is hot too. So they made the most out of their 5 picks. When you look at Minnesota, considering the resources or the lack thereof they had.
Yeah. I think, Mike, you got the Ravens.
Oh, I do have the Baltimore Ravens. I'm done. All right, Ravens are up next. I will say the Vikings, the one question I had was 25 and 26. The 2 picks after, they got a ton more picks back for those 2. And the Minnesota Vikings came in with no draft capital. I was just surprised that they didn't make those moves.
You trying to say they should
I was just surprised they didn't make those moves, but it seemed like they just had one hole they wanted to plug.
I mean,
plugged it.
That starting 5 offensive line is going to be legit, though.
Best offensive line we see in Minnesota since like Adrian Peterson was running behind, right?
Yeah.
But
special question, Jerry saw being healthy again.
Their secondary right now could be an issue, is the only thing I'm worried about. All right, Baltimore Ravens, who had one of, if not my favorite draft, just so many good players added to this roster and so many like high ceiling players. Like I could see Malachi Starks being a top 5 safety in the NFL. I could see Mike Green being like a top 10 pure pass rusher. I could see Emory Jones developing into a Pro Bowl guard. So my favorite one,
all right,
though, I mean,
it's all right.
Mike Green, though, has to be just obviously we know why he's available here, but it's not talent. Look at his overall rank there, 10th, 11th. I don't know anyone that had this guy as like not a top 20 player in terms of what he did on a football field.
Yeah,
and just after Abdul Carter, probably the highest floor in this edge rushing class.
Pure rusher.
You already saw it, right? Yeah, you saw it already with him numerous games. So that pick, obviously, great head scratcher. There's none. This is like
really
guys, this is the Ravens, dude.
This is what the Ravens do year in and year out.
I think I said this on the Eric DeCosta's track record at GM in terms of drafting has been unbelievable.
Yes,
unbelievable.
Mike, I mean, there's not a head scratcher, but something that make you say, their 6th round pick in Tyler Loop, kicker, Arizona. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's been some stories about their current kicker out there right now. So,
but even just, I mean, he was bad last year too.
He was.
Justin Tucker was not good. So I think there's a good chance that.
But yeah, and it's like why Baltimore being so good? They had like 10. It felt like 10 picks, and all their picks is really, really good.
They get all them compensatory picks, man. When dudes lead, that's why.
Man,
I mean, getting the Aeneas Peoples in the 6th round is crazy, and even Garrett Dellinger in the 7th round was crazy.
Dude, I love Peoples. I think he's going to be. I mean, he's
going to have a nice little on 3rd down. He's going to have a nice little role on that team.
Yes.
All right, I have the Detroit Lions next. I'll start with I would say not the negative, but maybe a little head scratching. Tyleik Williams, their 1st round pick.
Yeah.
And I say that because Aleem McNeil has the same skill set. Now, again, I know he's coming off an ACL, but they also have DJ Reader. So to me, like they literally needed an edge rusher in the worst way, right? And they went with one, but not till the 6th round. So my thing is, why would they not go edge rusher when we talk about the bevy of edge rushers that were on the board for them to take? Donovan Ezeraku was still there. He ends up going to the top of the 2nd to the Dallas Cowboys, right? Femi Oladejo went in the top of the 2nd.
We just talked about Mike Green.
Mike Green went in the 2nd round. Like, so to me, them taking Tyleik Williams, a guy that literally has the same skill set as a young Aleem McNeil, because Aleem McNeil has grown into a really good pass rusher now inside. And I think they feel like Tyleik Williams can do that. But they also have DJ Reader, who has that same skill set in regards to stopping the run. So Tyleik Williams was one of the best run-stopping D tackles in football. Really love the Tate Ratledge pick in the 2nd round. I think he'll compete to start this year. It's going to be between him and Mahogany, and they're going to battle it out to see who starts. Tesla is a big slot receiver. It'll be interesting to see how they use him because he fits a different mold than they have on the roster right now. Do they consider him being able to play outside? Because we know the sun god mans the slot position for them in Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I saw Tesla as a big slot receiver. But getting Miles Frazier in the 5th is criminal. Like, this dude should have went no later than the 3rd round. And I would not be surprised because Graham Glasgow is getting up there in age that in 2 years he's your starter at right guard. Like, that's how good Miles Frazier is.
Again, he's played a lot of ball too.
Criminal to me that he fell to the 5th round. So besides the Tyreek thing, and again, he's a good player. I thought that was a bit of a reach at 28, especially when they have similar players on their roster.
Okay, I'm up next. I have the Washington Commanders, just like Minnesota. Didn't have a lot. They also had 5 selections in this draft because, of course, they did a lot of trading. You know, you added Deebo Samuel, you added Laramie Tunsil, so they lost some draft capital. But I love what they did. The best value for me is Trey Amos, getting him in the 2nd round. The thing about Trey Amos, he had 1st round type talent, but because there was not a run on corners in the 1st round, he was available in the 2nd round. And this is a position of need for the Commanders, and here's why. You're playing in a division where you have so many legit wide receiver ones. You know, you look at Malik Neighbors with the Giants. You look at the 2-headed monster in Philly with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. You look at what Dallas have with C.D. Lamb. You better have guys that can cover. And also, too, Marshawn Lattimore hasn't shown the ability to stay healthy. So adding depth to that area was huge. You look at also 1st round selection, getting Josh Connolly Jr., adding more talent to the offensive line. I understand they traded for Laramie Tunsil, but that was an area of concern with their young quarterback along with the injury. So I can easily see Josh starting off on he's starting on the right side, of course, with Laramie Tunsil. Yeah. And now you have future depth there when it comes to the right side and with his versatility. I also love Jalen Lane, getting him in the 4th round. I remember as we got ready for the collegiate season last summer, many felt like he could potentially be a 1st round or 2nd round type of talent. Inconsistent quarterback play didn't really lead to the numbers that many people thought he could give. But if you look at everything he's done at Virginia Tech, big-time football player, short-handed guy, getting him in the 4th round as depth. Remember, they lost Diami Brown to Jacksonville via free agency. So in terms of head-scratching move from me, I really didn't see anything. I mean, you only had 5 picks. You improved. You potentially got 2 starters out of 5 picks. And that 3rd guy will contribute on the offense in Jalen Lane. And if you're telling me you only have 5 picks and you get 2 legit starters, I'm okay with that.
And I think Corey Krosky-Merrick contributes too. I mean, they need speed in that backfield, and he has real wheels. So this was the 2nd closest draft outside of Tampa Bay to having a no skip. Every single guy except Jalen Lane was actually higher on my draft board than where they went. So I obviously loved the Commanders draft. All right, Buffalo Bills, they took a lot of shots. Like I said before, and they had 10 picks going in, a lot of trade ups. The best pick, in my opinion, though, or at least the one that I'm most excited about what it could be versus where they got him, it's the Buffalo Bills. Oh, Jesus. I said Deion Walker for the Buffalo Bills. He, to me, get him in the 4th round. If you watch his sophomore tape, and now back injury this past year, obviously a back injury at his size at 6'7", 331 is like, that's bad. You know, some guys, not a lot of people used to have bad backs. If you have back stuff going on, oftentimes it can be debilitating, especially when you're big. But his sophomore tape was better than any defensive tackle in this class not named Mason Graham, in my opinion. Like, his sophomore tape was insane what he was capable of doing at that age, at 19 years old in the SEC, just a physically dominant human being. You didn't see that next step this past year because of injury, but his best trait for a guy that size is he can get up the football field. He has great feet. He's nimble. He has a spin move. He has a lot of stuff at his disposal. And he goes to a great one-gapping scheme that needs a nose tackle. That's just going to be like, hey, just get up the football field, Deion. So he went to a great spot for him. Even if he's big and long, I thought he was worse at actually like holding blocks and 2-gapping. He's just too tall. And they're not going to ask him to do that. That's not what Buffalo Bills do. So love that pick. The head scratcher to me was TJ Sanders. Like, I get that they wanted defensive tackles, but they traded up for TJ Sanders, who to me he's at Oliver. I don't see he's redundant to Ed Oliver as well. Like
he's bigger though.
Yeah, but I just don't see you needed the nose tackle to complement the Ed Oliver at 3 technique, and I just don't necessarily see him. I worry about him in the running game as well. I think he can rush the passer and get up the football field, but I have concerns about him in the running game. So that was my head scratcher for the Buffalo Bills.
Yes, I have the Philadelphia Eagles next. Best pick, bang for buck, without a doubt, Andrew Makuba. Let's not forget they just lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I think he fits in that mold. This guy is a tone setter in the secondary. He's a heat-seeking missile when it comes to tackling guys in the alley. I think they needed that in the worst way. They needed a safety in the worst way to pair with Reed Blankenship anyway. And I think Andrew Makuba comes in day one and starts. My under the radar, and I don't think they actually had there's not really a head scratcher on here for me, because even Jahad Campbell, right? We don't know with the injury history with Nakobe Dean. That's why I think they took Jahad Campbell. But I heard he might actually have a shoulder as well. So that'll be interesting to see going forward. Mac McWilliams from UCF, I think is an intriguing one because he's a guy that can play inside and outside. And I think he'll actually compete with Keely Ringo to see who starts at that third cornerback spot opposite of Quinyon Mitchell and what's my guy's name from Iowa?
Cooper DeJean.
Cooper DeJean. I think Mac McWilliams competes day one that could potentially start over Keely Ringo for Philadelphia. So I actually like what they did. Again, I don't think there was too many head scratchers on that one.
For me, I have the runner-ups of the Super Bowl, Kansas City Chiefs. Best pick for me, Josh Simmons, arguably the most talented offensive lineman in the draft. He fell to the late first round because of an injury. And, of course, Pete Prisco was high on him. And if you're Kansas City, that was a glaring need. And getting him at 32 in the first round could actually be one of the more defining picks as we move forward within their organization because of his talent level. And hopefully he stays healthy. The most head-scratching pick for me, is Kansas City in round 2, guys. They took Omar Norman Lott from Tennessee. The reason why that's a head-scratching pick for me, that's good value. Took him in the second round, but he was a rotational player throughout his time at Tennessee, his 2 years there. He never was a starter. He was a rotational player. Now, Tennessee had depth, especially at the edge rushing position.
I was about to
say. They had depth, but being a rotational player and going in the second round, you don't see that. Now, there was production, especially against some of the lesser teams in the SEC. But all I'm saying is that's high value for a guy who never was a starter. That's my only concern.
The passer, though, B-Mac. Those guys go higher. You know that. Guys that can rush the passer.
I mean,
yeah, I think they lost.
My thing would be like this. When you look at Oregon had 2 glorified defensive tackles. One went in the first round. The other one went, third, fourth? Third
round. Yeah.
Who was the other interior defensive tackle for Tennessee that got drafted high?
They still in school.
Exactly. You made my point, Leger.
That could have been, you know how it is. That could be coaching staff. I know when you turn this tape on, it's hot.
It is. That's my only concern. That's the head scratcher for me, bro. You went in the second round. Not saying you don't have talent, but you was a rotational player. That's all.
Yeah.
All right. 2 teams that didn't make the first round. Los Angeles Rams. My best pick for them, I think it's Chris Paul, all the way down the 5th. I think this guy's top 100 player. I think he was my 4th ranked linebacker. You put him next to Omar Spates, all of a sudden, this ain't a bad linebacking core whatsoever. I think it's actually a pretty darn good one. So I love that pick. I didn't even have a head scratcher. I saw the vision with all these guys. I mean, Terrence Ferguson, second round. Not a lot of people had him that high. I did, and my comp for him was Tyler Higbee. So, that's that makes a lot of sense then. And Josiah Stewart is the ideal fit to be a sub-package rusher in how they've set up this defense. He is that. And then Jarquez Hunter, 4th round. They needed speed. You have a slower running back group there, and Kyron Williams, Blake Corum, he gives you speed. So I saw the vision for all this. It's really one of those drafts where it's don't not scratch my head too much. It's just a pretty darn good draft there for the Rams, and they have another first rounder next year in what could be a good quarterback class. So I think they really played this one well.
Yeah, the Houston Texans didn't have a ton of draft cap, but they gained because they actually traded up it seemed like they were going to try to trade up because they gained 2 6-round picks this year, but then they ended up trading back and they gained more draft capital. So they had a bevy of picks. They didn't have a first round, but I love their second round pick in Jaden Higgins. And I know people will say that him and Nico Collins are kind of like the same receiver, but as smooth as they're both very smooth receivers that can get in and out of their breaks, both stand at like 6'4". I love Jaden Higgins' ability in the red zone. Guys, he had 9 receiving touchdowns. All 9 came in the red zone. That lets you know you could put the ball up on those fades, and he's coming down with the football, right? The question mark for me was their second round pick, because I thought they needed to maybe attack more of the interior of the offensive line, and Ariante Israe is not playing inside because he is a big, long offensive tackle that struggles with leverage, and it's obvious because he's so tall that sometimes it's hard for him to bend his knees and move. So that was my question mark pick for them. Again, I think he'll be a swing tackle for them this year with the possibility in the future to potentially start at tackle, or they could have him compete this year with Blake Fisher, who they took last year, to start at right tackle, because I think they're going to slide Titus Howard inside. One thing they do love is Jalen's. They drafted 3 of them: Jalen Noel, Jalen Smith, and Jalen Reed. And I love Jaden Reed. I actually had him as a 3rd-round guy. He went to 6th round. He's a guy that has slot flexibility now. They have probably the best secondary in all of football, the Houston Texans. They probably have the best collective secondary in football. But Jalen Reed will get to learn behind a guy like C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who literally has the same skill set as him. So I like that pick as well. And Jalen Noel, Christian Kirk is on the last year of his deal. So that's why I think they took him, because he's going to be the slot guy when Christian Kirk leaves in free agency next year.
I push back. So you said Jaden Higgins is, people are saying he's too much like Nico. It's like, is this a bad thing? No,
that's what I'm saying. I'm like, I don't think that's an issue.
if you have 2 possession receivers who are just like, run 4.6s, yeah, that's a bad thing. Like you still need, but these guys run 4.4s. Nico's 4.45. Right. Jaden Higgins is 4.47. They can get down the football field. I'm not too worried. I actually love the combination of that. And I love that they brought that Iowa State receiving core that was so productive without like much going for them at the quarterback position in Iowa State. They brought that to the NFL where they get CJ Stroud now throwing on the rock. So fan of that draft, fan of you guys helping us out today. Thanks so much, Lizzie. Thanks so much for BMAC. It's been a great draft. It's in the books, but we're going to keep giving you guys some recaps all week long. We'll be back a little later this week. Until then, keep pushing.